a magia do futebol. Somos diferentes, mas torcer nos faz parecidos. Não importa se você assiste com a camisa da sorte, no bar com amigos ou em casa na poltrona.
Preparou, vai bater, pegou!
Se você é o que grita mais alto, o que só comemora depois do replay, cada um torce do seu jeito. Coca-Cola, torcer é pra todos.
Essa música numa aventura off-road, hein? Já imaginou? Então aproveita para se imaginar a bordo do novo Jeep Renegade 2025. Agora com as novas versões Altitude, Willys, Saara e Night Eagle. Todas com motor turbo de 185 cavalos, o mais potente da categoria, capacidade off-road e 5 anos de garantia. Com certeza um deles é a sua cara. Ou melhor, o seu espírito aventureiro. Aproveite. Faça um test drive no novo Jeep Renegade. Paz no Trânsito começa por você.
Meu nome é Cairo Santos e eu sou kicker e único brasileiro jogando na NFL. Cada chute, cada jarda conquistada, cada passo me levou para mais perto dos meus sonhos. Agora, a cada R$200 em compras com seu Visa cadastrado, você tem a chance de ficar mais perto do sonho de assistir ao Super Bowl 59. E usando o seu cartão de débito, você ainda concorre a prêmios diários de até R$1.000. Não importa o tamanho do seu sonho, dê o primeiro passo. Visa, apoiando seus passos aonde você quiser chegar.
We had three main focuses: discipline, physicality, and American bravery. Our discipline went up, significantly, and we saw a lower number of obvious penalties. I think physicality-wise, we spent a lot of time on contact accuracy. Generally, the players coming in from the professional league, the breakdown's a bit of a mess here, and guys get away with a lot of things. So one thing that we picked up coming out of the July series was that things that we were being penalized for in test matches were being allowed inside of Major League Rugby, guys putting their hands on the floor and things like that. So we spent an immense amount of time just, kind of working on those things and getting our body height down, getting our leg drive in the right spot in order to win collision. So, if you start to look at our dominant shot percentages, they went up as we went throughout the tournament. So the physicality came up, and we saw some real game line carries, and our attacking penalties were right in line with everybody else, which we still think we can improve. So
welcome to U.S. Rugby Happy Hour Live. Interviews with the biggest names in American rugby.
The New England Free Jacks, Major League Rugby champions. One-on-one to score.
Here are your hosts, Bill Baker and that other guy.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, or if you're listening at the podcast replay, which comes out on Thursdays, by the way, thank you so much for tuning in as well. In the meantime, please like, follow, and subscribe to this show. Again, whether you're live or you're new to Facebook, or tuning in on your favorite podcast player, that's Spotify, iHeartRadio, pretty much all of them. Please go ahead and follow us there. Give us a review as well. We love it. We love it. We love it. And share this podcast with your friends. Any kind of USA Rugby fans, or any rugby fans in general. It doesn't have to be just USA fans. But check it out. Share the show with them. In the meantime, my co-host, John Fitzpatrick, unfortunately couldn't make it tonight. I scoured the internet looking for a temporary co-host, but I just couldn't find anyone worthy. So you're stuck with just me tonight. It's okay. It's just an hour-long show. You'll be okay. Actually, I did hear that Fitzy was out in Seattle auditioning to become the new rookie mascot performer for the Seattle Seawolves. So we'll see. Everyone wish him luck for that one. Tonight, if you're not already familiar with the show, tonight we have two great guests tonight. USA Men's head coach Scott Lawrence and USA Women's head coach Sione Fukufuka joining us later in the show. And we got Scott coming up here in just in a minute, right after I take care of some information. Some stuff out there you guys might have caught. Antoine Dupont, probably arguably the number one player in the world right now, is not playing for LA, so relax. He was just in LA doing some rugby business, other business. I know there's a photo online of him with a rugby LA shirt. Calm down, maybe one day, but not yet. Also, a negative side, Utah Warriors just announced today that they are not renewing 17 contracts, and in those 17 contracts, are a few Eagles: Paul Mullen, Mika Cruze, Tommy Tuivau. I mean, those are three solid players who apparently do not have a home in MLR right now. My wish is Paul Mullen becomes a free jack. He has family in Massachusetts, so that's just my wish right there. But interesting stuff going on in Utah. It's been a great program since they came into the league, and they still are a great program. So obviously they have a plan, and we will stay tuned and check that out. So again, just real quick, go ahead, please like, follow, and subscribe. If you're watching right now live on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All this is just, we do this for fun. We love the game, and we love that you're listening in to enjoy the game with us as well. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Fresh back from the PNC in Japan, joining us now is U.S. Rugby men's head coach Scott Lawrence. Hey, Scott.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, it's good to be home.
Yeah, do you get any downtime at all?
I think I got 3 or 4 hours in the morning just to catch up on some things that Mrs. Lawrence had for me to do when I got home, and then straight back into it.
And right back into the heat of Atlanta when you got back. I was down there shortly before you got back. It was like 90, I think, when I left there. That was I know Japan was warm too, but Atlanta was hot.
Yeah, I think it was the first time in my life that I actually looked forward to lower humidity in Atlanta.
Atlanta, Jesus. Yeah, that's something a few of us noticed. The uniforms the players are using, they looked like they were soaked before kickoff. That's how bad it looked.
Yeah, it was pretty humid. Sun was pretty intense there, and you could see why the Japanese walk around a lot with umbrellas and covered up. Yeah, sun's pretty intense there.
I bet. All right, Scott, let's jump right into it. Let's talk the PNC, Pacific Nations Cup. Canada, Japan, Fiji, Samoa, and USA, obviously 1-3 finish with the lone win over Canada. Talk about the overall performance of the team and a disappointing tournament as well.
I think when we look at in retrospect, it was a good start. We were kind of fresh coming in, and you look at the performance of the team. International rugby is interesting because we play on a Saturday in LA. By the time you land, it's Monday in Japan. So you're, 14-hour time change and a 6-day turnaround to go play a new test match in a different country. So that first week, I think we came out a bit slow to start against Japan, gave them a little too much time and respect, so to speak, and then really clawed our way back in the second half. I think from Fiji perspective, the team grew physically quite a bit, and physicality really came up, discipline really came up in that game. Same story for Fiji and Samoa, really just really opportune moments in the game that we just didn't execute well, and it's a real reflection of where we are with the low number of caps in the squad, and learning how to win and lose those games when it counts.
And so let's talk a bit about the positive takeaways of this tournament. It seemed like you mentioned a minute ago when discipline is good, the team played really well. I noticed that against Fiji and Samoa. When discipline was there, the ball was quicker. The team played much better together. Talk about those positive takeaways from the tournament. What did the team do well, and also what did they improve the most in maybe over that period?
Yeah, I think discipline. We had 3 main focuses for the overarching principles or focuses for the campaign, which was discipline, physicality, and American bravery. So those 3 things are really what we focused on. Discipline down to coding our trainings for penalties and doing penalty reviews and law presentations, and so an immense amount of time. So our discipline went up significantly, and we saw a lower number of obvious penalties in games, more 50-50s. So I think that was a plus, and something, I'll continue to work with the referees on is we want our 50% of those 50-50s when it comes to those. So we did see that quite a bit. think physicality wise, we spent a lot of time on contact accuracy. Generally, the players coming in from the professional league, the breakdown's a bit of a mess here, and guys get away with a lot of things. So one thing that we picked up coming out of the July series was that things that we were being penalized for in test matches were being allowed inside of Major League Rugby, guys putting their hands on the floor and things like that. So we spent an immense amount of time just, kind of working on those things and getting our body height down, getting our leg drive in the right spot in order to win collision. So tons of work on that, a lot of technical work, mindset work as well. So, if you start to look at our dominant shot percentages, they went up as we went throughout the tournament. So the physicality came up, and we saw some real gain line carries, and our attacking penalties were right in line with everybody else, which we still think we can improve. So I think, we did some things in attack. We tried some things, and that's what you do a year like this. You try some things when you're not, trying to qualify. And some things worked, some things didn't. And, I'll say there were opportunities where we pulled the trigger in some of those games, and that's positive and the things that we were trying. But I think there's still a long way to go with sharpening up the attack from this tour.
And you did mention MLR. It is a bit messy, and it's getting there. It's growing, obviously. Yeah. How do you build those consistent skills and execution? How do you get them from entering from the side? How do you get them with hands on the ground? Is it playing more together, training more together at the international level, more test matches? I mean, you're going to have 9 international fixtures by this year. That's got to help. Yeah,
time together is always key. They need to perform under pressure. How do you become a better coach? You get better players. How do you become a better player? You play with better players and against better players as well. So I think time together is obviously key. The international game, our teams can generally do something 70 to 80% of the time. They can execute under pressure, something really good. So if you're an 80% execution team, you're actually pretty good. If you're 90% or above, you're world class. So the game is quite simple, but it's unforgiving. So that one time that you are late for a clean, or that one time you don't work on the floor after you carry, it's a turnover. Because you're facing guys that are in that 90% or above category. So I think the key thing here, is, that time together that forces that discipline, because there is no compromise. It's a loss of ball. It's a penalty. It's a change in momentum in the game. So if work focuses on those higher execution rates, and then, when they leave camp, it's just making sure that we share information with players. There's real clear development plans and one-on-ones aligned with coaches, and that we're transparent and share data to the coaches that are coaching the players every day, and foster a really, kind of collaborative relationship around that.
So we had Greg Peterson joined us a few weeks ago when he was with you over in Japan, and we talked about wins and losses, and he's obviously expressed that it's frustrating not winning these matches, and he's obviously been around a while, and you got the newer guys in there as well. Is that an overall feeling amongst, say, the coaching staff like yourself or else? Obviously you're trying to build for the future, but not winning matches has got to be frustrating.
Yeah, I think it can be tough. I mean, when you lose matches consecutively, my mother used to say to me, if you look for problems, you'll find plenty of them. And it's, you kind of get that sentiment within camp at times, this is broken, that's broken, etc. So it's on us as a coaching staff to continue to say, this is where we got better. This is where we need to improve, stay neutral, so to speak, solution focused, and keep working on it. I think, in this tour, we were getting better each game. Through Fiji. We did get better between Fiji and Samoa, but we really felt like the Samoa game was a game that was there for the taking, that we thought we could have won. And so probably the feeling of disappointment was greater in that last one. You end up finishing the tournament 1-3 instead of 2-2, fourth place instead of third. So, we've kind of, that sentiment is certainly there. It doesn't feel good. But that's the best thing about sport. You get another chance here in November, turn it around.
Very true. Let's talk about some players really quick from the PNC. Can you share anything about AJ McGinty and David Anu'u's status not being available? Was it because of club commitments? And also, are they available for the autumn test?
It's not because of club commitments. The clubs are, obligated through Regulation 9 to release the players during those windows. David had an opportunity to start and get starting time there in Toulouse. It was a long-term conversation around David in terms of getting him available for next year and building depth in the front row. So it opened the door for Pono Davis, who I wanted to get into camp and have a look at. So we've got an agreement through this year. Pono David will stay with the club, and Pono will be in the squad. AJ McGinty just had a new baby, and was working through that right before tour. So again, we said, hey, let's take a break for the PNC, 5 weeks away. Wife had 3 young children, so AJ will come back into the fold here for November.
Speaking of AJ, how was he after the summer series? I know probably no one's more frustrated than he was as far as working off the tee, and he was a bit rusty coming into the fray. How was he after those matches?
I think he was pretty reflective on his performance, and AJ takes an immense amount of the team on his shoulders, and it's important for us that we put AJ in a position where he can just come in and do his job, not feel like he needs to lead the team or the attack, but come in and execute his role. And so I think we worked our way through that in the post review in July, and that's the way we're setting up going into November.
So you mentioned Pono a second ago. Let's talk about some of the guys who received their first caps in this tour. Again, Pono, McNulty, Santos, name a few. It seems to us, at least fans or viewing the matches, they all performed very well for their first taste of Test rugby. Toby Fricker played very strong, a couple of tries right off the bat, played really well at fullback. Talk about these new caps and how important it is to get them in now.
Yeah, it's important for them to get the Test experience, which we talked about earlier. It's also for team cohesion. And for them to get in and start to build into next year. We'll go through November, and then we'll have a big break. Again, we're not back together again until next July. So it is important that we get the time in, not just the time to be in camp now and to build the cohesion and do those things, but also to for them to understand the expectations, for them to know that when they do go back, we call it Eagle 365, that you need to be an international 365 days a year, which means being very professional within your club and living those ideals. So it's important for us to get exposure of a lot of players, and I'll expose some more players to it in November, because for me, it's about a development process between now and July for a pool of players upwards of 60 that we all want executing to the same development.
Big gap between the PNC and the autumn series. How are the current rostered players, or at least the players who've you already selected to I'm assuming you already selected to play in the November series, how are they keeping rugby fit physically and mentally? And also, those players who did not get selected now, how are they staying rugby fit this time of year?
So we have programming that comes from Alex Ross, our head of performance. So everybody's got an individualized program. There's a public dashboard, so accountability is maintained within the squad in terms of how we're doing that. And we encourage guys to get games. At least get 2 games between now and November, depending on what they can. And you see guys like Tavita Lepetti's playing, up at Mystic River, for example, right? And so we've got a number of players kind of floating around the ARP clubs, playing in the Chicago area, getting some games in Southern California. So they train in with clubs, and they pick out a couple games in between. But you saw it with AJ in July, and it is real. If you're not playing, your game instincts and the sharpness of your decision making it does deteriorate. So there's a lot of discussion, particularly with college coaches, about players playing, and they need to play. They need to create those mental maps, and they need to keep that mental acuity.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Olha o contra-ataque aí, vem que vem o time avançando rápido pela linha de campo. Bola dominada no pé do camisa 10. Ele vai pra cima, passou pelo primeiro, passou pelo segundo. Invadiu a grande área, vai chutar. Bateu, é gol! Que golaço, minha gente!
A experiência de futebol mais autêntica já criada para os games. Junte-se no 5x5 Rush, a nova maneira de jogar com os amigos, e leve seu clube para a vitória. EA Sports FC 25. Dê tudo pelo clube. Já disponível.
And back to the show. So, Scott, let's talk pathway systems and player growth. You recently shared, I believe today or yesterday, a post talking about how your staff prepares players for international matches and used the metric MMM, meaningful match minutes. Can you elaborate on that for our listeners?
Yeah, it's a competitive game, really, and that definition can be fairly loose. But number of minutes that you're playing in a game that is highly competitive for your level of play, that you're put in win and lose situations and forced to make decisions and perform under pressure in that. So I really like the Chicago Hounds model around MMM. They look at their academy and they look at the level of play that's required. So, your MMM may be at one level, and then the next year it's MLR level is considered MMM. So there's a progression to it. When we looked at our games, I just chose 2 examples of how we were able to progress Ran Santos and Dom Bisag into the national team this year. If they had just played their collegiate season, they had 4 to 5 meaningful matches, so to speak, that were close. They weren't complete blowouts. They, were pressure. The U20s campaign and the Junior World Trophy and then making it to a final drove those meaningful minutes. Those are high pressure minutes up to prepare them to international play. So I think the big thing around those minutes is you need those consistently year on year. And as part of our big play here through this next World Cup cycle is my biggest focus now is what are they going to do from 20 to 23? And where do those meaningful match minutes come? And so that's some of the programming and collaborative stuff we'll be doing with different programs around that.
Now, is there a certain weight put on these minutes? Let's say like Dom Bisag, maybe 16 minutes or so against Canada, as opposed to playing for St. Mary against Life Wesley, although he played 80 in that game. That was a very competitive match. Is there a different weight for those 2 matches, especially because of the different levels?
As Dom progresses, there's a different weight, but we don't fine cut it that much, really. It's like, hey, was he in a tough game? Was he competitive? Was he at the level he should be for that particular competition? Yes, he was. Does he get 50% or not? We don't really go down to that level.
So similar with, say, guys like Corbin Smith or, Steph Crimp who play over in the Bucks Super Series in England. Decent league for them, University League. It's strong matches as long as they're very competitive. There's no 60-0 wins or losses. It's very competitive matches. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you're thinking about an international player, whether the game is, playing in Super Bucks or it's playing in a collegiate game, you're going to want the ball in Dom Biseg's hands when the score is within a try, right? So he's gonna get an opportunity in a pressure situation to perform, and he's going to learn from that.
And with the pathway systems, generally speaking, since you took over as the interim head coach, and to now, have you seen a measurable growth in the Pathways program?
Yeah, it's been intentional, in terms of what we do. So I think I'm not sure if it's well known, but I didn't ask to come in to be the head coach. I asked to come in and run the entire pathway and head coach the national team, and so we've hired and aligned those pathway programs up to the senior team, same terminology, same expectations, player profiles, all the way up vertically. So a lot of matrix where, one coach from the U20s will be a skills coach, work with the national team, et cetera. So we've seen growth there. And what we really noticed was around Rand and Dom was we brought in new players into the squad in August that had not been in international play before, and we brought them in to the Eagles camp as well. And they were ahead of their professional peers in being able to prepare to train and prepare to play, and their professionalism, because they came through the pathway program and they understood what it was. The U20s is a replica environment of the senior Eagles in terms of the way things are done.
And part of the growth or pathways, I could be wrong about calling this a pathways program, but Charlotte Anthem, after one season with them, we talked about this early before this season, also even at the game. Were those goals set? You put goals on for the season for this team. Were they set? Were they accomplished at the end of the season? Like I said, you put certain goals to this team, perform, get certain players. Yeah. Did you accomplish those goals?
Yeah, we did. We wanted to get 10 players to become full-time professionals for next year out of the Anthem program last year, and we've done that. We've been able to push a number of those players through. We wanted a couple of new guys for the Eagle pool. We got that with Connor McManus and Lucas Gramlich. That came out of that. So those expectations were met. We met those measurables. The rest of the program was about just getting started, just get off the ground, and just get it going and build some pros for next year. And Brandon Sparks has done a really nice job, has had a good off season, and we'll have more pathway players in there for this next year.
Well, not just pathways, but we see Connor Mooneyham has joined Anthem. Junior Gaffa is now a full-time member at Anthem. Should we expect to see more Eagles joining for this next season, or maybe some Dallas players?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay. This is just mainly for me, not just for me, but I guess for fans of USA as well. Have we seen the last, or at least less growth of domestic Eagles going overseas to play club rugby, maybe because of Major League Rugby, or wanting to be available full-time? Not that it's been a problem maybe for AJ or David, but wanting to be available to be an Eagle at all times?
I'm not sure if that's really, causation. I think we definitely want to see, we want the players playing in Major League Rugby. I'd say it's our home competition, and we have good relationships there. And generally, most teams are pulling for, national team success. So that's important that we do that. When you step back from it, from a player perspective, you also say, if you can get a contract in the Prem or in top 14 because of your time in Major League Rugby, and until Major League Rugby is on par with those, then absolutely you should. You have a limited window to make a living at this, and so you should do that if and when that works for you. So, but I don't think we've seen guys that are necessarily not going. I think the PNC timing this year definitely put pressure on the guys that were there in those clubs. We never had that. It's not a problem. It's a good problem, but we never had that conflict, so to speak, in the past. But we'll continue to see guys that are doing things like taking the MLR off season and going and playing in the NPC, or going down and playing Shoot Shield. So there are players that are doing that, that are going out and doing that, and we encourage that as well.
All right, last thing, Scott. You've been at the helm of the program for about 2 years now. Your process or ideas of building the pathways, the program, the player pool, et cetera. We heard the terminology of 0Gs, Gemini, MMM, et cetera. It doesn't sound like something you just came up with when you got the job. Have you had these ideas in your back pocket for years, waiting for this moment, or is it something maybe you and the staff just came up with as soon as you took the job?
I had spent 20 years in business strategy and product strategy, so it's kind of it was a natural thing for me to put it together. It was a way for us to simplify ideas. I think we had an idea in the first 3 to 4 months of where we wanted to go. The more that we learned about where the bodies are buried, so to speak, where the financing is, where it's not, how it works with our partners and stakeholders, it really started to crystallize into, okay, here's the big rocks of this is how we need to move, and this is the cycle that we need to go through. We did a lot of that, and then we just put the moonshot framework around it because it made it tangible and made it something we could latch on to.
Well, Scott, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Good luck in November and good luck in the future. Obviously, we love talking to you about this stuff, so love to talk to you again soon, maybe right around that time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and we'll catch up after November.
Sounds good, Scott. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.